Hello and welcome to the second Wrestlecast. I am joined here by the performance artist, poet, keen vlogger, and wrestling enthusiast, DrayZera. DrayZera, thank you for being here with me.
Good day to everybody. Hello, I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So I'll start off right off the bat with how I started with Ollie. How did you end up getting into wrestling?
So, I grew up around the Attitude Era kind of time, and I feel that my dad was a big fan of wrestling at the time, and I always used to watch wrestling with my dad, and I remembered very loosely that I was watching on the TV. We kept flicking between Raw and Nitro because that was during the Monday Night Wars because we had the TV channel Bravo at the time in the UK and Sky Sports or whatever they were broadcasting it. So it was kind of a simulcast of the shows, and then I feel that over time I really continued enjoying wrestling, and I did have a bit of a break during the mid to around the midpoint of the 2000s, but then I kind of got that love back towards the early part of the 2010s, and to be fair, ever since then I've really enjoyed wrestling, and in the last few recent years, I've actually been enjoying far more indie wrestling, local wrestling, but also I've been enjoying wrestling promotions such as AEW, New Japan, and essentially I've been enjoying almost every wrestling company except for the big dogs in WWE, to be fair.
Yeah, a lot since the Attitude Era, especially people growing up around that era. A lot of fans have spoken that they just either gave up watching or started watching wrestling elsewhere due to alienation for the sort of PG era of the product and kind of the corny attempts of humor and such.
I feel it's more of the corny attempts of humor because at the end of the day, there may have been quote unquote corniness in other films and other mediums, but as long as it makes sense and everything, if the audience isn't made out to be stupid, like WWE have done on numerous occasions, that's why there's going to be an increase of AEW fans. There's going to be more of an increase of New Japan fans over time, and etc. Because the people that book those events, they don't treat the audience like mugs.
Yeah, there's a lot less insulting of your intelligence and a sort of raunchy kind of old school theme like New Japan. If you're really like the technical side of the wrestling, if you like it to look like a real sport kind of vibe, New Japan's your place. If you want more kind of consistently fast-paced wrestling, you'll go with kind of AEW for a sort of more accessible alternative than New Japan, especially with things like the language barrier. I know you can get English commentary, but still, there's less of that. The AEW style will be more familiar to a Western audience, I would say.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. I feel that AEW kind of marriages some of the strong style approach from Japanese wrestling, but also incorporates, as you said, a more palatable plate for Western audiences to avoid the kind of, I wouldn't say confusion, but it's wrestling that I feel translates well to the Western audience and also to a smaller extent the Eastern audiences as well.
Yeah. And you've been in the position of you've actually met several people who are currently on the AEW roster, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
So who are these people that you've met, just for the audience's benefit?
So I've met Shug D, aka the one that Chris Jericho calls Pineapple Pete. We met at a local event, and he was wrestling. And interestingly enough, I know it's a slight plug here, but my co-host of the DrayZera Uncensored podcast, Jackie Hyde, who's also a professional wrestler, he Sugar D actually crashed at his, which is kind of mad. Who else have I met? I've met Pentagon Junior. I met Pentagon Junior, and I've also met within the AEW roster. We're talking specifically. Who else could I think of? Yeah, I've also met Jimmy Havoc as well. Jimmy Havoc was very nice, a very lovely guy. And then why does the name always escapes me? The name that
Sabian?
escapes me. Yeah, Kip Sabian. Yes. Kip Sabian. Yeah. I don't know why I forgot his name for some reason. But anyway, must be a long day. But yeah, Kip Sabian. Yeah, he's an awesome guy. I've seen him wrestle quite a few times because he is from the specific part of the country that we both are at. And yeah, he's such a lovely guy. And I will always like chuckle to myself because there was a WrestleMania. Yeah, I think it was a WrestleMania 34 or 32 party, one of the two, yeah. And it was at the after party of a DOA wrestling event. And it was just, Kip Sabian just having some nice veggie pizza. We're just chilling next to each other, and it kind of feels surreal now. But and of course I'm very happy of the opportunities I've had meeting these wrestlers, regardless of context. But yeah, it's kind of also a reason why I'm really rooting for AEW because some of the wrestlers in the roster I've met in a previous time.
Yeah, I'm especially jealous of you meeting Pentagon Jr. because he's one of my personal favorite wrestlers. Back from when he used to perform for Lucha Underground, and then now with the Lucha Brothers and Pac in Death Triangle, which it's a shame we haven't seen more of yet because I love Pac, big fan of both of the Lucha Brothers, and to have them together in a heel stable, I think that's going to mature into something special.
I mean, shout out to my friend Dan, my best friend Dan. I mean, for me, I could have gone to this event, but for some reason I was tied up or busy or something. So there was this event. I think it was in Nottingham, and this was a few months before AEW went on TV, and it was legit the main event because I can't remember why they didn't have the main event before somewhere else, but I think this was the reason. They couldn't have Pac versus it was either Double or Nothing or whatever. Yeah, Pac versus Hangman. I don't think it couldn't have happened that Double or Nothing because of the fact that I think Pac had either visa issues or something like that. But so Hangman Page. This is in Nottingham. The main event was Hangman Page versus Pac, and my best friend Dan. He legit had a long chat with Pac afterwards, and I'm not jealous type. But I'm like, damn, I could have hung out with Pac too. So, like, it's amazing how, even though that we're a very small island of the UK, like, it shows you how much the UK is quite a hotbed for wrestlers.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of people come here from all over. I've met Grado and Big Damo when they were with ICW. I also met Johnny Gargano in an NXT tour. That was a lot of fun. I like Johnny Gargano. I two-sweeted with him. That was
What was that? I'm not 100% sure when was that. What year was it? Was it 2018 or 19?
Yeah, want to download that year or the year before, yes.
Oh, download, yeah. Download. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, Big Damo, he's a lovely guy as well. I've met him a few times personally, and yeah, I mean, it's just awesome the fact that we get to meet these individuals, of which most of them, or all of them that we've mentioned, are on TV in one form or the other.
Yeah, Damo obviously goes by Killian Dane now, but I just refer to him by Big Damo because that's how I've known him mostly.
Absolutely.
Very underutilized as Killian Dane, I felt.
To be fair, Sanity has been heavily underutilized. I mean, the only member of Sanity that have flourished, if at all, like properly, is Nikki Cross.
Yeah.
Other than that, Eric Young has been released. Killian Dane has Killian Dane been released? I'm not 100% sure, but
I've not seen it announced.
Yeah, I don't think he's been released, but if he has or hasn't, he's been invisible. And Alexander Wolf, he's an Imperium, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
And even though Imperium's been built like all right, they haven't gone to the main roster yet, and it's that main roster deathbed, unfortunately.
It does happen. Where a lot of people resist or refuse to get called up for that very reason. I think part of it is the
Mm.
reason is Walter only wants to wrestle in Europe. He doesn't really want to go to America, and that's fair enough. You can't make him. So I
Ab-
think that might have something to do with it. But
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think one of the sticking points initially of Walter signing for like NXT, the main brand of NXT, was because he just doesn't like traveling. When he used to really be a prominent member of the WXW roster in Germany, yeah. So yeah, yeah. But
yeah,
hey, WWE NXT UK circumvents that, eh?
yeah. So that's a nice little loophole for them there. Obviously, there's a lot more avenues for wrestlers to get on TV at the moment with the amount of companies with television deals, and also the more arguably since maybe the territory days to see lots of different styles and lots of wrestlers having really good matches. But
I,
speaking of matches, what have been sort of your favorite matches growing up?
all right. So are we talking about essentially from up until the age I was like, so before I was kind of like 16 kind of age, right? Are we going with that?
Honestly, just your favorite matches ever. Like, if you
Okay.
had to say which ones were your
All right.
favorites
All right.
now.
All right. So now I would say so. All right, I'll categorize this in two. So when I was younger, I was a big fan of, so in WCW terms, I was a big fan of Goldberg and Sting when I was younger. And even though the match quality in terms of the technical style quality may not be as great as it is now, the aura between Hulk Hogan versus Goldberg when Goldberg beat Hogan and got the WCW Heavyweight Championship, that was really awe-inspiring. And if we're talking kind of like the modern kind of era, I felt that in terms of what it meant, the Daniel Bryan triple threat match at WrestleMania 30 when Daniel Bryan got the belts, that was an incredible moment. And I also felt that if we're going to talk outside of WWE, I feel that any match involving Kenny Omega and Okada are amazing. And anything from last year's G1 Classic, I watched them. I watched more or less nearly every match of the G1 Classic. Absolutely incredible.
Yes, one stands out for me for that one is John Moxley versus Tomohiro Ishii.
Mm, hard hitting mother trucker of a match, 100%. Yeah.
Absolutely hench boy.
Mm.
The Golden Lovers versus the Young Bucks, I thought was one of my favorite matches. The two Omega Jericho, especially the first one, but both Omega Jericho matches. Another one for me is CM Punk versus John Cena at Money in the Bank. Those sorts of matches.
I get you. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'll throw in something for fun. I think it was either SummerSlam 2014 or 15 or 13, one of those 3 years when Brock Lesnar squashed John Cena. I just found that more funny.
That
I think it was in. I
was
watched
nice
it
to
in
see at
Norwich.
the time, wasn't it?
It was ridiculously funny. I was watching it in a very specific bar or pub that's more or less dedicated to wrestling, and quite a bit of the Knight family. They were there just laughing along with us as well. That was quite fun.
Oh, nice. What pub is that, by the way?
That's a good question. I can't honestly, to be honest, I can't even remember the name because I was just shout out to my friend Butters. Butters was the one that drove us there. And I never really noticed the name of it, but all I can remember is it was a pub with like multiple screens, and opposite it was a lovely kebabi. But I think that doesn't really narrow it down that much. But
Is it
yeah,
the
it
Owl
was.
Sanctuary, by the way?
Like I said, any name you give me, we'll just give it that because I actually have zero idea what the name is. Do you know what I mean? I have literal no idea.
So is it the venue, the Massive Queef? Then we'll settle for that.
Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll go with that.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a good laugh of a match. So shall we get into the meat and potatoes of this? Are you ready to run through the card with me?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah. So I've got the card in front of me. Go for it, Aaron.
So we'll probably start at the prelims because the others I'm going to do in kind of order of significance or so. But the prelim is Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn, and his noticeable weird high-pitched shriek versus the Best Friends, Chuck Taylor and Trent. Who have you got for that one and why?
I think Private Party should win, even though Private Party's been on AEW Dark in recent weeks. I feel that Private Party needs the win because to get them back in prominence, because due to the isolation period internationally, I feel that Private Party has been a little bit cold, whereas Best Friends have been on TV consistently. And to be fair, I think if Private Party loses, then I think it loses their credibility. But if Best Friend lose, then I don't think it really damages them too much, simply because they've got a juggernaut in their trio, which we'll talk about later, that will keep them in a prominent position.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I'd personally go the other way just because it feels that Best Friends have more momentum and more kind of upside than Private Party. And I think with the singles matches, especially how close Kenny versus Trent was, and the tag match they had where Kenny was with Michael Nakazawa and his bottle of lubricant, I feel like there's a bit more history to draw on, a bit more context, and just the way they're being booked at the moment, I'd have to say the Best Friends.
But you're not worried about pushing Private Party.
I understand why. I just think the Best Friends are quite high profile and such a popular good team that I don't think it would hurt them losing as long as it's kept kind of competitive. It's not a squash.
It completely depends on how the match rolls. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, so we've respectfully disagreed on that one. Another one that's
absolutely fine. I mean, we're not here to agree. We're just here to discuss. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. I'm not someone who I've never been a wrestling fan, and we could probably talk about this for a podcast in itself. Who, I've kind of followed the Brian Zane sort of motto from Wrestling with Regret in like what you like, don't be a dick, sort of thing. And I think that follows on to anyone's opinions about anything to do with wrestling or their logic behind it. Like
100%. At the end of the day, I think I'm very open to listening to other people's opinions. Like for me, if you're a big fan of WWE, I mean personally, I have my opinions of WWE. But if you're really in love with the product, I ain't going to shit on your opinions. But I'll respect it. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, but you certainly could tell people what you didn't like about it and why, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think if we do another one, which obviously for another pay-per-view, I'd love to have you back if you'd be willing. But I think we could go in a bit more detail about the foibles of WWE in its own podcast, because AEW is a very good promotion in its own right. This one was just announced in a news segment called SSN, Sean Spears News, where he...
oh my God, that was so good!
I really hope they continue with this, because they've not done too much with Sean Spears, especially when he debuted so strongly. I think it was Fyter Fest or Fight for the Fallen, where he hit Cody in the dome with that chair.
It was, I believe it. Yeah, I think also at the end of Fight for the Fallen, and I believe it was the end of Fight for the Fallen, and then I think they had their match at Full Gear. I'm not 100% sure. It might be that. Yeah.
Yes. It might have been that or All In, because I think Cody lost to Jericho at Full Gear, so it's the pay-per-view before that.
Yeah. I get you now. Yeah. I get you. Yes. Makes sense. Yeah. I get you. Yeah.
And he simultaneously, in the space of 2 minutes, retired and then unretired Dustin Rhodes for a match.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, see, this is one of the most but like, it's just mad. Like, the way I see it, right, is that, and this is what's interesting. Like, when Dustin Rhodes said that he's going to retire, I'm going to retire. Like, I don't know if they made this match due to not everyone being available, or does this play a storyline, or is this a one-off match? What do you think, Aaron?
I have a funny feeling because even since his loss, Sean Spears has kind of been wrangling for a rematch and said, "Oh, I haven't got my rematch," and he's still been putting Cody on blast. He hasn't, apart from that short-lived win over Joey Janela at Full Gear, he hasn't really been put in a proper program. You had his search for a tag team partner, which has just fizzled out. They haven't really done anything with it. I think that could have been COVID related. It might not be. I don't know either way. But I think it's a case of like, because I can't get to Cody, I'm going to get through him for his brother. And I wouldn't be surprised if after this he tries to attack QT Marshall and Arn Anderson and, try and get to him. Like in a case of, if you want to be my lover, you've got to get with my friends, but in an entirely different context. That's my thoughts on it.
Oh. Yeah, I get. Yeah. I get what you mean.
And I also think Dustin is one of the most popular people in the. Despite his age obviously gives him the amazing experience, and the fact that he can still go in his mid-50s to a high standard. I mean, last year they had the match of the year with Cody, which was an incredible match, incredible 5-star match for me. Did you enjoy that one?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. The emotions of that match, the storyline, absolute top notch in my opinion. 100%. Like, and it shows you that Dustin still has that storytelling prowess. The only thing is that I feel that if Dustin Rhodes is going to continue wrestling, I think he has a maximum 1 to 2 years left. I feel that I don't want to end up like The Undertaker, be all smoke and mirrors and literally be a shadow of the man that he is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that breaks your heart seeing those ones, especially the fact that he could have been seriously injured or even killed in the match in Saudi Arabia against Goldberg. That one was worrying.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God! Like the match against Goldberg was worrying. Any match that involves the Undertaker, except for cinematic matches like the Boneyard match, that worries me to hell. You know what I mean?
Yes. It's fine. The Boneyard match was fine, and he looked good, and because it wasn't a match, they kind of curtailed all of his weak spots and his stamina. All he had to really do is throw punch and a few finishing moves.
Absolutely, and yeah. So, if we're talking about the predictions, then who do you think is going to win between Dustin and Sean? I think Sean should win. I don't. What's the point of Dustin winning?
Yeah, well, because Dustin can lose and still have his aura. He can. It still means a lot to go over on him because he doesn't lose all the time on telly. He only loses to, people like the Inner Circle or Jake Hager or Lance Archer, where it makes sense for him to lose. They're trying to build up big, credible threats to be taken seriously. And Dustin, you still want to see Dustin go because he's really good and he's just that likable. And he's obviously a legend of the game. And I think they've already backed off on the tag team partner thing, which means I think hopefully they're going to commit to a more renewing their singles push for Sean Spears. And with SSN just launched, I think he should definitely, and he probably will beat Dustin Rhodes. So I'm going to agree with you on Sean Spears.
Yeah, Sean Spears to win. Yeah. So what's the next match then, Aaron?
We have one of the best heels in the company. Certainly, I think, in terms of style, just because she's actively dislikable in her presentation. Dr. Britt Baker, did you know she was a dentist? DMD versus Chris Statlander.
Okay, so I'm going to say this right off the bat. Based on the action that I saw in AEW this week, there is a very slim to no chance of this match even happening.
Yeah,
you go on. Sorry.
Yeah, we obviously, as DrayZera just pointed out, there was an injury. I'm going with what's officially on the fight card, but it might still be. That's why you have subject to change. When Nyla Rose was powerbombed onto Britt Baker. Nyla landed on Britt Baker's knee, and they're reckoning it could even be a torn ACL, which means 6 to 9 months on the shelf for Britt Baker, which is horrible.
I really feel sorry. I really feel sorry for her. I mean, she was literally getting steam. Her storyline with Tony Schiavone and her showcasing of being a quote-unquote dickhead of a dentist. I mean, literally, like, Britt Baker was literally on steam, but I feel that if the injury is as bad as it is, I feel that as we're recording, as we're recording, I think she's getting checked out today at some point. But yeah, I think that either the match is going to be either Chris Statlander is going to have a different opponent, or this match is going to be scrapped altogether fully. So, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that Statlander is going to have a replacement, or do you think that just don't have the match and make one of the matches longer?
I think it would be a shame if they didn't have the match, because I was looking forward to having 2 women's matches on the card. And them not being on the prelims, like Britt Baker versus Bea Priestley was, which I think was a very good match. But
very good match.
And if it must be said, I think the strongest critique of AEW can make is they have not treated their women's division with the care and attention that it deserves.
I fully agree with you. I feel that though that it's improved.
I would agree with you on that, yes.
It's improved, but they need to do much more. But I feel that during the situation that we're in right now, I feel slowly but surely they're going to get better in time. Hopefully by the end of the year, it's going to be far more of a prominent position. I mean, here's the thing that gives you the perfect idea of what we mean in terms of the women's division. I mean, we know Nyla Rose is the current champion, but I have to double check and remember who was the first champion. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not off the top of my tongue, even though that I've seen her wrestle a few times. But because of the fact that the first champion of the AEW Women's Champion, because she hasn't been as active until Nyla Rose beat her. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, of course. I totally understand what you think, and
Riho. That's it. I just had to search that up quickly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Riho.
The fact that I knew, but the thing is, the fact that you even had to check and you were a big fan of AEW's work is worrying, and I think it says it all about how once Riho won it, she was barely on telly, and you only really saw her for her title defenses until they took the belt off her for Nyla Rose. And I understand she had some pre-AEW commitments in Japan that she had to honor. But that being said, if you have someone where you can't have them for so long and you don't put them on telly as a result, you don't build feuds, why put the belt on her in the first place?
Exactly. I mean, I feel that I'm not trying to sound as if that AEW wanted to be like exclusive to everybody. You know what I mean? Part of me makes me feel of, oh look, we have a BAME as a first ever women's champion. Do you know what I mean? And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I just felt that they wanted to just appeal to a different audience. It's kind of a bit like when Jinder Mahal became WWE champion. It was literally to sell network subscriptions in India.
Yeah, because they were just doing a tour of India for the first time, even though Jinder Mahal, the modern-day Maharaja, is in fact from Canada.
Absolutely. I mean, a bit like me, Rolls that can't see. If anyone can see the image on my on where we're talking from, you could tell I have Asian blood, but I do not sound anything like the modern-day Maharaja. That the kind of stereotype of Jinder Mahal pulling that Indian voice, but. Yeah, I mean, the funniest thing is when, going a bit off track here, we'll get back to AEW, but I remembered when Jinder Mahal became WWE champion, I think some state in Canada, or some places in Canada, I think there was a governor's meeting, and I think one of the councillors said, yeah, we'd like to thank one of our own, Jinder Mahal. So I was like, what? As the champion, like, no, they don't get the kayfabe. It's like, oh
and it's also
days.
like the WWE are very desperate to appeal to the Latin market, and obviously Eddie Guerrero deserved his belt, and so did Rey Mysterio. But they're always trying to build up a new one. Like before Vince got the Humberto Carrillo, Angel Garza. Now
they tried. Don't forget they tried with Kalisto, but they really Kalisto was United States champion a couple of times, but he's been cold with the. He had Lucha House Party, but yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, you have Humberto Carrillo, you've got Angel Garza, and I'll tell you something so dumb.
Phantasmo now on NXT.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, here's a perfect example, right? Angel Garza in NXT, to my memory, yeah, a few weeks before he got called up, he proposed to his girlfriend to be his wife, but now he's playing in the main roster, some sort of womanizer. I'm like, bro, this makes no sense.
It's quite a sharp transition, isn't it?
I mean, like, to my knowledge, I'm pretty sure Angel Garza and his fiancée, they're still together, so this is ridiculous. It's almost as ridiculous as the Bobby Lashley Rusev storyline, but oh, don't get me started on that.
Let's save that maybe for another time. Otherwise, we'll be here for hours.
I might legit break my recording device on my end. So yeah, what's the next match?
We didn't predict. If it does go ahead, I think it'll likely be Penelope Ford versus Statlander, because I think she's one of the few other women who are prominently, if they can't get Riho, which wouldn't make sense. She's the or B Priestley, I think, is in Japan. I think she's the only other prominent enough heel to face Chris Statlander. But I think including the prelim, there's already 9 matches on the card. One less. I think they'll probably likely to ditch it, which is a shame for Chris Statlander and the women's division. But they're likely to ditch it and just have 8 matches, including the prelim, and give everyone else a bit longer. Probably like the Stampede and the ladder match, add a few stunts in.
I think that Penelope Ford is probably the best shout to replace Britt Baker, because I'm 90% sure that Britt Baker's not going to wrestle on Saturday night. But yeah, I think if it's a replacement against Chris Statlander, Chris better win, unless there's some sort of random surprise of somebody prominent. But yeah, and also side note, I have checked on Instagram a bit of a while ago that B Priestley is just chilling with Will Ospreay somewhere in Essex.
Yeah, so there's no way that's going to happen.
Absolutely no way. Absolutely no way. No way, Jose. Absolutely not. Yeah, like, absolutely not.
So most likely this is getting bumped, but
most likely getting,
which is a shame. But we've got in another match I'm quite excited for, MJF versus Jungle Boy. I think this one's one of the most clear cut on the card. But who do you have and why? All
right, so I was listening to the great Dave Meltzer on a FLW Online, just listening to the Observer Radio, and I was listening to that, and I was like, this is so intriguing, because it's so obvious that MJF should win, but he did put the idea of, if MJF were to lose a match and to add more heat, it might be this match that Jungle Boy could win. But saying that, I feel that MJF, like, I tell you, I love MJF so much. Like, to me, in my opinion, MJF, in my honest opinion, is a far better version of The Miz, to the point that I feel that MJF is in his own kind of element. So I feel that it's the only way is up. I think MJF should win, but I'm not going to rule out an upset.
I think it's pretty clear cut for MJF, to be honest. I think that MJF has been positioned for something big. I think most likely he's going to be AEW World Champion within the year. I don't know when, but that's what I think. And I think they're going to have him screw Jungle Boy over somehow and get the win, and then put himself in title contention. I think it's quite obvious. I think they wouldn't have put him over Cody if they weren't going to keep him over.
I get what you mean. So you don't think that honestly think that MGF? You think that it might damage MGF if he loses, or does it depend on how the match goes?
I don't think it would damage him for long because I think they'd immediately have him come back and stomp Jungle Boy or do something horrific.
Yeah,
but I just think they're going to keep MJF protected for a long time. That's it's not a matter of damaging him more than they're just going to keep him protected, and
And I mean also Jungle Boy and MJF, they're both in their early 20s, right? So they are, if they stay long enough, they're going to be the cornerstones of AEW. Long after Jericho, long after Dustin Rhodes retires, etc. So I feel that there's a chance that MJF and Jungle Boy, if this is a one match, if they're going to have another match, I think they can have a potential story rivalry. I might be asking for too much, but yeah, MJF to win. I mean, on balance, MJF to win seems the most logical choice.
Yeah, I'd say so too. But I'm obviously a big fan of Jungle Boy, and I think we'll talk about a third person later. But I think those two are some of the people who are going to be the future of that company, depending on. Jungle Boy has already said AEW WWE rejected him for being too small, and they said that he could come back if he put on like £20 or something, 20 or £30 or something like that. But say he's got a very good prominent position on the card. Next we have the Casino ladder match, which includes Darby Allin, Colt Cabana, Orange Cassidy, Rey Fenix, Scorpio Sky, Kip Sabian, Frankie Kazarian, Luchasaurus, and a mystery person. I'm not going to bother speculating on who the mystery person is. I just want it to be a surprise. But I was a bit disappointed that they're doing this match, even. No disrespect, because of how close it is to Money in the Bank, and it feels a bit... It's in the same month that Money in the Bank happened, and I feel they should try and continue to differentiate themselves from WWE as much as possible. So I would have been fine with this happening further away from like 2 months before or after Money in the Bank, but it just... I have mixed feelings about that, but I still think it'll be a good match.
You know what's interesting, right? I mean, I mean, I think what's interesting is that I honestly never thought about that. But to be honest, you bring a fair point. But I think the main thing that will be different from this ladder match versus the ladder match that was ridiculously cartoony based on what I've heard in the Money in the Bank match.
Oh, it was dumb. It was really dumb.
I mean, why is Dong the Clown on the TV screens in 2020? I'll never know. But let alone Brother Love. Why? Brother Love introduced The Undertaker in 1990.
Because he was in the building and they could get him. All they had to do is like put some red paint on his face and a white suit.
Oh, bad. All right, yeah. So let's look at the competitors. So we've got, as you said, we've got Darby Allin, Colt Cabana, Cassidy, Phoenix, Scorpio Sky, Kip Sabian, Kazarian, Luchasaurus, and the mystery partner that we're not going to bother speculating who. But yeah, one thing that really strikes me is we've got 2 members of SCU in the same ladder match. I find that interesting.
Yeah, and unless they've this is how they introduce a new signing. I'm not sure, because I think I don't know whether the people who were released from WWE had the compete clauses, but it's not going to be Sting. I've heard people say it's Sting. It's not going to be Sting. In the stage of his career, and we don't even know whether he's safe to wrestle because of what happened in his last match against Seth Rollins. They would never risk him in a ladder match. They just wouldn't, unless he's going to win really quickly. I don't think they'd risk him.
I thought we weren't going to speculate.
Sorry, it's not going to be Sting.
No, it's cool. It's cool. No. I mean, yeah, to all those things going to be Sting, bro. Seth Rollins retired his ass unintentionally. Okay, no more, please. No.
Yeah.
Right. In terms, all right. So I'm gonna rule out people. So I don't think Orange Cassidy's gonna win. I don't think Colt Cabana's gonna win. I don't think Kazarian's gonna win. I'm not really sure if Luchasaurus is gonna win. I think there are 3 people that are favourites. He's either going to be Ray Phoenix, Scorpio Sky, and Darby Allin. Now, the reason why I think Scorpio Sky has a chance is because in recent weeks in AEW, they've been throwing in vignettes for Scorpio Sky and building him up. So that's part of the reasoning. I know. What do you think, Aaron?
Well, process of elimination on the 8 that we know. It's not going to be Kazarian. He had a good match with Moxley, but I think it's, they're well in the tag team division. Or I just don't think he's been built up enough. We don't know enough about him. He's the one we have heard the least from, independent of the others. In terms of the promo packages for Scorpio, obviously, and Christopher Daniels kind of leading the charge against the Dark Order and getting pasted for his troubles. I don't believe it's going to be Luchasaurus. I think he's fine where he is. I don't think they'd shoot him into the title picture. I just don't see it happening. I don't think it's Colt Cabana or Orange Cassidy because they are kind of comedy sort of mid-card wrestlers. As much as I love Orange Cassidy and Cole, I just don't see it. And also, it doesn't. It enhances this match to have them both in, but it doesn't harm them if they lose. And I think they could credibly go for a mid-card or a tag team title and have a good program, but I don't think they're, especially at this stage, sort of wrestlers you want going for the big one. I think personally it's going to be Darby Allin.
And why is that?
I just think they're the one. He gets the promo time he's gotten consistently. The history he has with people like Cody, he had a really good they've let him have really good competitive matches with Moxley, with Cody, with Kenny, with Chris Jericho, and he's looked really, really good. And I think just because of how much we've seen of him consistently and how his profile and his profile compared to the others, and how they clearly see him as a future top guy, I think they might try and give him a big win here. I don't know whether he'll win the title from that win, but they're clearly doing something with him in getting into arguments with Taz backstage and punching Cody in the face after their tag match. I think they're kind of turning him into a bit of a, not like the Crow era Sting. I know he gets compared to Sting a lot because face paint, but I think they might have him as a bit of a kind of sort of rebellious kind of rebel without a cause kind of anti-hero figure.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. So I've been thinking about this. So thing is with Darby Allin is that I think Darby Allin was initially going to be my favorite. However, I think, all right, this is a bold prediction. I think Taz is going to screw him over. Or somebody's going to screw him over. And my prediction of who's going to win the briefcase for the Casino Ladder match is going to be the mystery opponent. I think whoever's the mystery opponent is going to win.
Because they're building it up to be a big surprise and a big reveal. That's smart.
I think it's going to be that. And I think Darby Allin is going to get close. But I think in this match, he's going to be the bridesmaid, but not the bride.
Yeah, that's a fair prediction. And then I think depending on who wins the TV title, he steps in and maybe takes it off, takes it next or something like that, or comes back with a vengeance. Few I see with a credible chance. I see Ray Phoenix credibly winning it because I think he'd have a very good program with whoever the champion is. Scorpio Sky, I think, is second most likely to win it because of the vignettes and the fact that he's had a title match against Chris Jericho before. We know that he can do it and be positioned there credibly. And I think Kip Sabian, because those sorts of matches are traditionally been won by kind of sneaky, sort of douchey heel characters. And I think the most complete version of that by a mile is Kip Sabian in that ladder match of the opponents we know.
I get what you mean. I get what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this match. This is going to be spot fest to hell. But I'm in for it. I'm all in for it. I'm all in for it. Like, where do you think this match will be on the card? Like, I mean, I would love it personally if they opened with this.
I think it's definitely the perfect sort of place to opener, because after the prelim, you need a fast, action-paced match. And considering I think they're going to end with the Stadium Stampede, because I don't think anything on the card is going to top that, and I don't think they'd main event with the ladder match because of how close it would be to Money in the Bank. They just didn't want to look. It wouldn't look good, and I think the Stadium Stampede match is going to be ridiculous.
I mean, while I agree with you, sorry to interrupt, I was just thinking, John Moxley, Brody Lee. You don't think that's going to be the final match?
I don't think so. No, I think it's gonna. If it goes on after the Stadium Stampede match, it just won't look as good. And I think, given I understand, filming limits the possibilities, but really this match has only been given 1 or 2 weeks build. 2 weeks build properly, and I rate Brody Lee. I think he's a very good choice for the Exalted one. I hope they steer away from throwing shade at WWE and just try and succeed in their own right. The first week it was funny, but it might start to grate. But before he arrived, there has been really inconsistent, botched booking, I think, for the Dark Order, and they've gotten a very mixed response. But we'll talk about that later, but that's the only gripes I have with it. But you're going with the mystery opponent. I'm going with Darby Allin. I think they're both. You make a compelling argument, DrayZera. Thank you very much. All right, next we have for the TV title. I think you can make a compelling case for either Cody with Arn and Brandy versus the Murderhawk Monster, Lance Archer with Jake the Snake Roberts himself.
Yeah.
Who have you got for this one?
This is the match I've been looking forward to the most of all this card. This is the mother trucking match. I love Lance Archer so much. I love his hair. I love his theme song. I've been listening to his theme song on repeat. Jake Roberts,
It's a banger, isn't it?
Yeah. Jake, absolute banger. Jake Roberts is one of the greatest wrestlers that have ever wrestled in his time, never to win the top title in the company, but for him to be so legendary and never win a top title is a testament to that man. Lance Archer, please inject it in my veins, win this TNT title, and turn Cody heel.
I'd ask you if you'd expand on that. Why do you first want him to win? Secondly, why do you think he will win? And finally, do you think if he loses, a Cody heel turn is on the cards? And what would that look like for you?
Okay, so what I'm thinking is this. So I think that I believe Lance Archer has got a whole swathe of opponents ready for him to just be that Murderhawk Monster, and eventually somebody to take off the belt from him, somebody different. But in Cody's case, I think it'll be great for Lance Archer's career to be the first champion. And I feel that for Cody, despite him being perhaps one of the best faces in the company, some of his mannerisms and he has a natural kind of prick persona, I would say, that can easily turn him heel. We saw bits of that in the sense that of his WWE run, but also in the fact that Brandy Rhodes can heal up as well. Sorry, Aaron, carry on.
Yeah, sorry, excuse me. Sorry for interrupting you there. The Bullet, we saw a bit of that also as well with the Bullet Club Civil War, didn't we? What he's capable of.
Absolutely. And absolutely. And remember when Cody initially went to the Indies, he literally was so healed. He was such a heel because obviously you have a WWE guy coming to their territory, right? And he basically healed it up. So I know that Cody can eventually be a slow turn heel. And I think that Lance Archer, his stock will definitely rise. And I feel that the long-term booking for Cody, in my opinion, should be to slowly turn him heel and to go against the Elite, because even though he is part of the Elite, I think out of all the members of the Elite, and I mean including Hangman Page in this, which we'll talk about later, I think he is the most separate member of the Elite away from the rest of the Elite, and of course he's the one that takes the media calls. He's the one that does all the chat as well as Tony Khan. So I just think that it'll be a far compelling story if he slowly turns heel. And don't forget, Arn Anderson helped him. I think it was either a pay-per-view match or a match on Dynamite that Arn Anderson slightly healed up a little bit for Cody to win a match. So I think that's what I want, and there could be some slight Lance Archer bias because he's incredible. He is arguably one of the best big men in the industry right now. And yeah, so what do you think, Aaron? Who do you think will win?
I'd be inclined to agree with your praise of Lance Archer. He obviously won Most Improved Wrestler in the prestigious Wrestling Observer awards last year, Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer. And considering the man is 41, that's amazing that he just had this career renaissance, really establishing himself after the end of his tenure with Killer Elite Squad to the tag team with Davey Boy Smith, the son of the legendary British Bulldog. I personally, I want a Lance Archer win because I think that'd be more interesting, but I think Cody's going to win it. Firstly, to be a bit contrarian, and it's nice to have a bit of debate. Secondly, because I think he's in the last bit pay-per-views, he's had two very big high-profile losses. One against Jericho, which banished him from the title, and one skin of his teeth loss to MJF. And I think this is kind of a story of redemption. And I think he's likely, and I think in the future we might see Darby Allin win the title off of him, which I sort of hinted at earlier, and there's a possibility, and then losing the belt to Darby, and then the heel turn happens on a more sympathetic character. But I can understand the impetus for a heel turn for Lance Archer loss, but I just think they're going to go with Cody for this one. But I was wrong at Revolution. I was right at Full Gear, but I was wrong at Revolution, so I could be wrong again. And this one is the closest, I think, to cool. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. I think it completely depends. I'm so looking forward to this match. Like, oh man, I just can't wait. I just hope this match goes somewhere between at least 15 plus minutes, at least.
Yeah, it deserves 15-20 as a minimum, I would say. And also they've got the X Factor, the sort of fly in the ointment that is Mike Tyson, who will be presenting the awards. And Jim Ross didn't as much hint. He didn't much, plant some seeds as plough the whole field that Mike Tyson will get involved physically somehow. But depending on either way you see it, it could be feasible to get involved with either on the behalf of either. And also, your point about Cody being the most separate from the Elite, very similar to how the Elite was a faction within a faction when they were in the Bullet Club. Cody and his Nightmare family is very much a faction within a faction of the Elite.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. Like it's absolute mad thing. Like I'll tell you this right now. Like, have you seen the video clips of Mike Tyson?
Yes, I have. Very impressive pad work. He's one of the best to ever do it. Clearly,
there was recently a video that came out that he promoted sending to Chinese audiences. He's got a 6-pack and everything.
Yeah, he's done good. He's done. He smokes a lot of pot as well lately, so if he does come back to competition, I don't know how he'd pass a drugs test.
Look, look, right. Let's not get into the personal opinions whether cannabis is good or not. But I'll tell you this right now, Mike Tyson. Whatever you want to do in your life, man, as long as you ain't hurting anybody, have that thought of fighting for charity, man. Like, you do you, man. I'm just glad that you're in a better place.
Yeah, I have nothing but positive opinions about cannabis, but it was just entirely a logistical thing rather than a judgmental thing, because there are rules and regulations. But fair play, a charity boxing match between someone of his age. I wouldn't want him competing against Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua now, but against a Evander for an exhibition or a Shannon Briggs, I don't see the harm in it personally. I'm not as up in arms about it as some other people are. Next match, we have Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Cedar, which is a no disqualification and no count out match. I'm very excited for this one. Who have you got and why?
Nyla Rose, because I feel that she needs more steam ahead of her. I think it's going to be a great match with Hikaru Cedar. I will say one thing, though. If Hikaru Cedar wins, based on my promotion of me wanting Nyla to win, I think that if she wins, I'm chill with that, because she has been the #1 contender for 12 weeks straight. And yeah, I think that Hikaru Shida, I think she's quite underrated as a female competitor. She's good. She's quite good, and also with her height and kind of physicality, I think she can match Nyla in some way. So I'm really looking forward to this. I guess the only thing that I want is for this match to really be littered with entertainment, no quiet spots, just literal, like, I don't want blood and gore, but have the kind of like thunder kind of feel, really make this a showcasing match.
Yeah, I personally would agree with you on Nyla Rose as well. I think they're very, very hot on her. They pushed her so consistently. And when you're trying to make a proper monster heel champion, like a badass who can mess people up, they usually tend to have very, very long reigns. And Nyla Rose's reign, whilst long, it's not been long compared to, an Asuka or a Shayna Baszler or something like that. So I think she needs at least 3 to 9 months, probably more likely around 6 months longer of her reign before someone comes in and then gets it. So I don't think Shida gets this first time of asking. I think she might challenge, go away, challenge again, and then get it. So I'm saying I agree with you on Nyla Rose for this one.
Yeah.
Just because I think they're going to spend a lot more time with Nyla Rose as champion. And so that's a pretty simple one for both of us. But now we have got the AEW Championship match. Jon Moxley, the champion, versus Brody Lee. Who have you got for this one and why?
Right, so this is so interesting because, as we mentioned before, with the Dark Order, since Brody Lee has come in, or since they were talking about the Exalted One before Brody Lee arrived, I feel that the Dark Order has become quite a faction that's worth some metal these days, And the interesting thing is, to showcase how amazing the Dark Order is, they made 10, right? They made the wrestler called 10, like, worth something. Do you know what I mean? So against Jon Moxley this week at Dynamite. So, in my honest opinion, Brody Lee has built himself up quite well. However, saying that, I think that it would make storyline sense for Jon Moxley to win, get his title back from the title belt that Brody Lee stole, but they have to do it in a way to make it very competitive, and have to do it in a way that to keep Dark Order in check. Like, don't make them weak. So I'd want Jon Moxley to win, because I feel that with AEW being a fledgling company, even though they've been around for a year, I want the title holder to hold himself for a while, at least until we can get back to crowds. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that Jon Moxley will probably win it, because there's not been much for the build. They've got to do it in a way that makes Brody Lee look strong. Otherwise, where does the Dark Order go from there? You've complete that one is, if they do it wrong, they're in quite a lot of danger of harming Brody Lee, I feel, and the Dark Order irreparably. So I think it'll be quite a competitive one, but I think Jon Moxley will just eke it out. And especially since they had him beat Jericho, they've put a lot of stock of him. They had him go over Kenny Omega at Full Gear in that brutal match. They had him then go over Jericho. And then he's only had one title defense in that open arena match against Jake Hager, which was very competitive and good. And they managed to keep Jake Hager looking strong because they absolutely battered the living tar out of each other. So they did a good job of that, and hopefully they can repeat that and keep Moxley on. I don't know who's inevitably going to win the belt off Moxley, but I think he's got a long reign to come.
Exactly. So do you think that all of the Dark Order will be there?
I think at least 10 will interfere, but probably more. Like, Brody Lee is sort of interesting because he's a big hoss who can easily batter people, but he still sends people in to do his dirty work. So he's got kind of like the best of both worlds. Like, he's not quite a chicken shit heel who hides behind people, but he can do if he wants to. But he's not. But he's also a monster heel as well. So he has a lot of variation possible. I feel.
I get you.
Yeah.
I get you.
Another agreement for us. We're thinking along the same sort of tracks here, which is nice. I'm not going to burst a blood vessel in the recording.
I'm glad. We wouldn't want to have any splattering sounds in this audio.
No, it'd make this look quite suspect, wouldn't it, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, blading at a wrestling event is one thing, but what's the point of blading in a podcast?
Blading in an audio podcast, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we've got what could be our main event, what might be the second to last. It depends, because traditionally the championship is defended last, but it does sometimes vary. But we've got the match I'm very excited for, maybe most excited for, Stadium Stampede match between Matt Hardy and the Elite.
Damascus! Something like that.
Versus the Inner Circle of Chris Jericho, Jake Hager, the Spanish God, Sammy Guevara, and Santana Ortiz. Who have you got for this one and why? I think this is another 50-50, I feel.
Oh my god, right. This is... I'm going to tell you this right now. The Elite needs the win far more than the Inner Circle, for starters, because the Inner Circle's been quite dominant in the past few weeks, even though Matt Hardy did beat Sammy Guevara, but that match was so good to the point that it didn't really dampen anything about Sammy at all. But I think that the Elite should win by logic of booking, because if they're going to have these guys back, they need to bring it back. And I think that the Inner Circle and the Elite, I think they're going to continue feuding after this. Although saying that, I feel that a Stadium Stampede match feels like a feud ender, per se. So I'm kind of a bit 50-50. But I think that the Elite's going to win. Only the main thing that's making me think that is what I've just said, but also I think Hangman Adam Page is going to tease again, crossing the Elite, but I think in the end Adam Page might be the X Factor. And I don't think if it does. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I'm just saying that it's either going to be Sammy, Santana, and Ortiz to get the pin. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
They're going to be pinned.
Yes, I'm inclined to agree with you, because Santana and Ortiz work well as a unit, but I don't think they'd pin Jericho or Hager because of Hager's stature. But Sammy Guevara, he's been shown that he can come off pin losses, and it just doesn't affect his standing. He still is clearly someone that's up there with a future star of the promotion, like Alan or Jungle Boy or MJF, and that it just doesn't seem to affect him. He's just very, very popular and very, very good at what he does. I feel like inevitably there'll be some sort of disquiet in the Elite, similar to the Bullet Club, but it's not. I don't think they're going to do that when there isn't a crowd. I think Adam Page is going to come through, and I think the Elite need the win more than the Inner Circle, and we'll get it. And obviously, I also don't think this will be a feud ender, because they've said Blood and Guts is postponed and not cancelled. And I think even if they had this planned for now or not, they're gonna have. I think they're gonna have their blowout now be Blood and Guts when they get in front of a live crowd again.
Absolutely. And I think it's good because AEW pay-per-views are only like 4 a year, so they can spread things out.
Yeah, I think it's nice because feuds can go on longer and not get old, and you can let a storyline breathe. You're not rushed to develop things for an end of month pay-per-view or start of month pay-per-view every time. So I think that's a bit. I prefer that. I mean, even if they went to kind of 6 pay-per-views a year, one every 2 months rather than 3, I think that would still be workable. It'd still be reasonable. So there's kind of room for growth there. But I think one every 4 months is really good for stuff like this.
Indeed. I get you. So, what do you think of the event overall for Double or Nothing? Because Cody said in his media call last night that he said that 90% of what they're planning for Double or Nothing before the pandemic has been planned. So, I think they have a fair idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's a shame. Obviously, a crowd can't be there to experience it because it is a stacked card, and it's the potential to be one of, if not the best pay-per-view they pulled out. And they have quality. They've went with quality over quantity in terms of pay-per-view events. And I think that really pays off for them. I'm very, very excited for this one. I think it'll be good. They'll manage to make it work. You can even do stuff in these situations and make the best out of it that you couldn't do if it was in front of a crowd. So there'll be some innovations there. The same with WrestleMania. There'll be some stuff that works well, some stuff that maybe doesn't work as well. You'll obviously miss the atmosphere, but I think they'll adapt and overcome. And I'm very, very excited for this. And if it's when their plans haven't been thwarted too much by COVID and they've adapted where necessary, I think we're in for a very high caliber quality of pay-per-view. And quite frankly, it's tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. It's tomorrow. Absolutely. That'll be tomorrow.
Absolutely, Saturday 23rd.
It is absolutely Saturday 23rd. Yep, absolutely 23rd. It is. That will be when Double or Nothing will be. Yep.
Yeah, you can watch it obviously on TNT Network. You can watch it on Fight TV pay-per-view, or you can watch it using other means that I wouldn't possibly comment on. But I will enjoy it, I reckon. I hope everyone else listening that's interested in wrestling enjoys it, and I hope DrayZera enjoys it. DrayZera, just before we go, is there anything you wanted to plug at the end of the podcast?
So the DrayZera YouTube channel, I upload nearly every day on the main channel. That will be available. That's available at youtube.com. Search for DrayZera. You'll find me there. Also, I've got a Facebook page at DrayZera, Instagram DrayZera, Twitter DrayZera. And specifically, if you like long chats such as this, fellow Hoodcast viewers and listeners of the Wrestlecast and all of what Aaron Hood does, check out the DrayZera Uncensored podcast, which is with myself and pro wrestler himself, Jack E. Hyde. Those are my plugs. With a lovely tea and a mug.
Thank you for that wonderful last word sound off. I have been Aaron Hood, DrayZera has been DrayZera, obviously. And this has been the second episode of Wrestlecast. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and stay the fuck inside. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
We shall see you later, guys. Bye.